Hi, everyone. Welcome to Nom Watch Review, where we discuss the latest movie or milestone of said movie or film. Or I did say that twice. Let me backpedal on this, guys. Restart. So, welcome everybody. Thank you for watching Nom Watch Review, where we discuss the latest movie or milestone in movie or said film or show. Today we are discussing the Avengers, and we are also going to have our guest today to look like Miles. Sorry, I am gotta go back a little bit more backpedaling here. I apologize. So today we are discussing the Avengers. I have my guests today, Jordyn and Kenji. Thank you guys for joining us today. Today, before I skip into seeing what you guys are nomming, I'm gonna go ahead and slide in a dish here, getting some shawarma, French fries, pita bread, and some rice.
Oh, so good.
I got a little mini feast and a little Coca-Cola here. So I'm gonna go over to you, Jordyn, before I butcher any more words in my sayings here. How are you, my friend, and what are you eating with us today?
I'm doing so well. Looks like you were affected by the Tesseract just like me. I've already eaten some sushi, and I'm stuffed up from that, and I'm having a little Avengers, little old-fashioned. I feel like I have old-fashions on everything that I do on Not Much Review, but you know what? That's what it's, it's an old-fashioned, right? So having one of these and just having a good night. So it's good to be here as a guest.
Excellent. Fantastic. Hey, Kenji, my friend, how about yourself?
Well, earlier I ended up having a big bowl of ramen, so I'm already done on the meal wise, but now I got myself a big glass of milk and some birthday Oreo cookies. I'm just so excited for these. Basically,
dude,
Oreo
are those ones with the confetti inside?
Yes, they are. Seems like it's fitting, it's a 110th anniversary Oreo, 10th anniversary of the Avengers. I'm kidding. I'm totally stretching that. That's totally by luck. But
Excellent. Well, guys, along with this here, I just want to start off with possibly when you guys have seen this film originally when it came out. If you guys remember when it came out, any connections with it, were you a huge fan when it came out itself? Kenji, I want to go back with you, my friend, because I know that you have a love for Spider-Man. I know this is before pre-Spider-Man as well, too. But can you explain what connection you have with the film so far? I'm sorry, I look at you. I got you right when you started eating. I apologize. Right. I know this is not much for you. This is going to happen. I was like, food in your mouth and ask a question. I'm so sorry, my friend.
Is that going to happen? Oh, good thing I got milk. I mean, yeah. So I'm like an ad right now. I feel like an ad right now. Seriously, where's my spokesperson money? But but no, honestly, I remember when this movie came out. It was 10 years ago. I saw it in college with my buddies, and of course, at this point, we kind of were assuming that Spider-Man was never going to show up in the MCU because the rights being held up by Sony and stuff. So I was enjoying it for what it was, and it was our first introduction to Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk, and it was just I just remember that night just being so much fun. I think I ended up seeing it 2 more times in the theater. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. At the time, I really, really thought it was one of the greatest things ever.
Yeah, right on. Jordyn, how about yourself, my friend?
So you might take away my nerd card here, but originally when all of the original Marvel superhero movies came out with Captain America, Iron Man, all that stuff, even the Avengers, I didn't go to theaters to see it because this is around the time that Game of Thrones was out, all this stuff was out. So I was nerding out over all this other stuff, right? And I was like, oh, Avengers is out, oh, it's fine. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, maybe Harry Potter, maybe Fantastic Beasts was also around this time. So
Harry Potter for sure.
Yeah, I was in another nerddom. I was over there, I was doing all this stuff, and I was like, I don't know if I want to see that. So my first time seeing Avengers, I think I bought it on DVD one time, and I was just I love superheroes, blah blah blah. I know I love it, and I watched it, and I was like, this is great. I've never seen Captain America. I've never seen Iron Man. I've never seen Thor, and so. Once I saw the Avengers, I went back and I started watching all of this stuff. So when I watched this, I was like, this is the thing that sort of empowered me to watch all of the other things that were going on in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So
is it safe to say, Jordyn, that you DC'd it? You saw the big group movie first, and then you saw the individual character movie?
Wait, no, it's not safe to say that. Because Which is weird because I'm not a DC fan, but I saw all of the DC ones before I saw freaking Justice. Anyway, so I was like, I didn't DC it. I like marveled it. I don't know. It's weird. Like Marvel.
You know what I mean? Marveling at Marvel, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. So I did that.
Oh man, right on. Well, before I go into I'm gonna hop in the chat real quick here. Boba Fett has let's see here. She says, Kenji, what's your address? I'm coming for those Oreos. She says she's a little jealous of the food I'm having as well too. So we got some fans of our noms. Fantastic. So I mentioned this before when we discussed the Spider-Man verse in a sense in the past, and I got my first comics per se when it was Spider-Man versus Wolverine and also Sergeant Rock, and I got them not like I would consider the normal way of getting comics. My mom took me to, let's see, like plant nurseries and antique shops all day long, and at the time being, I couldn't stand it. It was driving me nuts. I had no idea what to do. Like I had to figure out how to keep myself occupied. So I like, all right, let me go find the cool looking plants. And or when I was in an antique shop, I was like, what can I get? And people were like, all the guys were like, comics. These were comics. And I knew what Disney was and I knew what Nickelodeon was, but I wasn't I didn't have the concept of that at one time. That's where superheroes came from, were these comic books. And so I've always had them, but they were always like inside the plastic coverings. I never took them out for the longest time. So these coming on screen was almost my first introduction to, I would say, the OG comics or the starters of a lot of the comic universe that we're seeing on screen. So coming into the Avengers, I actually went on there. I think I was on a date at the time being with a couple of friends. And I wasn't really, there because I wanted to see the movie. It was there because like, all right, might be interesting. And I'll just, kind of join the whole group per se. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, being sorry, producer Steph is like poking me over here. At the same time being, when it came on screen, I was like, oh my God, okay, all these characters are coming to life at this moment. So I would say immediately my first interaction, my first, connection to this was more of just a social, a social norm or a social exception. It was a big group thing, but in reality, I was a low-key nerd kind of getting an introduction and actually seeing them on the screen for the first time. So I was pretty not necessarily emotional connected, just, I stumbled into something that may be awesome. But let's go ahead and talk about the storyline itself. I'm going to go ahead and, Kenji, in your opinion, in regards to the storyline and pacing, being a fan of a huge comic fan in a sense, how did you compare the pacing to your knowledge of comics this time being?
So the weird thing is that when I was first introduced to comic books, I was really young. I mean, I had been watching like the Invincible Iron Man and the Amazing Spider-Man, like 90s cartoon series that were on like Fox Kids and stuff. But my first introduction to comic books was with the Onslaught wave, which is like, I don't know if you're familiar with Onslaught, but basically that was how I first got introduced to not just the X-Men, but to that's how I found out who the Avengers were. Like, I didn't know what the Avengers were until the Onslaught wave, because that's when like everyone kind of teamed up. But because of that, like I kind of got introduced to them with kind of like a really dark storyline where like the world is like straight up being destroyed in a way. So like it was much, I found it really interesting that like that it was a little bit more like happy-go-lucky in some sense. In some cases, it was a little bit more humorous. Yeah. Which, of course, for the movie, it worked. But for me, like seeing it, like a lot of these movies were kind of, it was really interesting because I was seeing like a different take on it, which, of course, I respected and understood because I realized it's just one storyline that was that I was introduced to. But still, it was relatively different. And I actually really thought that the pacing and the story was actually really good, especially when you have so many main characters, as you would call it. So like, I thought that it actually balanced everybody pretty good. Yeah.
Jordyn, on yourself, buddy. Coming into the storyline here, speaking of the characters, and knowing that you're saying that you were just introduced to it on DVD or Blu-ray or whatever the time being, how did you feel as a story pace for somebody that was newer coming into this?
So it was interesting because I knew, so I am a comic fan. Like I read a lot of the comics when I was in like high school. Like the library was like right up the street from my house, and so I'd like go there and like I did all that, and yeah, like I read the comic where, like, you know, like, just moving forward, like X-Men, all that stuff, where Scarlet Witch was like, no more mutants, and then like 90% of the mutants were like wiped it, right? Like I was there, I was doing that, I was like reading all that, and X-Men was my introduction into sort of like the Marvel sort of like comic, right? And I think there's a lot to say with that, with like the LGBTQ community and like all that stuff, like with X-Men. But I think for me, watching this, it was it like, and so I knew about the Infinity Stones, I knew about the Infinity War, right? Like from a comic standpoint. So when I watched this, I was like, this is interesting. Why is this person helping Loki? Oh, he is oh, this guy was in Thor. Okay, I gotta go back and watch that, right? And then it was like, oh, Loki's in it. Got it. And then like, so then I had to rewind and really look at how this all sort of came to be, right? But I do agree with Kenji, where it was like the story was palatable to a point where like I didn't need to watch like all of the like the prior Marvel movies to watch this to understand it, because I was already a fan. But even if I wasn't a fan, I'd be like, oh, this was like a pretty decent movie to like to reflect like these characters and what they're going through, right? Except for the fact that Scarlett Johansson can't do a Russian accent. And so but it really made me go back and watch all of the other ones, which then I fell in love with the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I think for me, the story made sense in a way where it was like, cool, I love this movie in itself, but let me go back and like watch everything, the precursors that came up to this.
100%. And sorry that I misworded. I said being introduced to, totally said that. I'm like, oh, here you are with all this experience of seeing these things. I totally misworded that. My bad. I should step back saying I'm the new one coming into looking into this here. But on
Good.
that,
You're fine.
It was me all along. I was the one.
It was Alejandro all along.
On that note, like I said, only seeing the stuff from outside looking in on a comic book sense, the storyline to me was actually pretty decent in regards to as well, which we're going to go into this next topic as well, talking about the actors in a sense. But the fact that they were able to go ahead and take Black Widow, Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, the Hulk, and Hawkeye, and even taking, additional, which we would consider, I hate saying B-class characters, but in a sense, or but you would say the sidekicks, and you still have about 15 plus people, and they are yet able to go ahead and tell a bit of story of each person within this 2.5 to 3 hours that they had there. So the pacing to me was actually pretty decent. Now, I will say there are some complaints I had in which the interactions between, I would say, Black Widow and the Hulk, which in my opinion were pretty great in character development. But I also felt like they were prepping things to happen that never happened per se. So it was like, okay, cool, relationship, awesome. Why did you like, I get that, this person is great for extracting information, but in the sense, it seemed like they were leaning towards a different direction, in my opinion. But I'll let you guys go a little bit more into that too as well when we talk about the actors, of course. But along with that too, like I said, I said it was decent because I have an issue here. Like both of you, we see the film and we're caught in awe. The CGI is like top notch and things are happening. You're like, this is fantastic. And it's like, I feel like I had a Michael Bay moment slapped in my eyes. I know it's not Michael Bay, but it's just like boom, lights, sound, camera, action. I was just enamored. And, coming into this now and thinking into what we have in regards to, let's say, cinema of the Marvel universe, I feel myself, or I feel like the film a little bit lacking. And and the thing is that I'm sure that in 2012, am I correct? Is this 2012 when this came out? I would have slapped this sucker with a 5-star, being a new guy. This was great, being introduced now. But in my opinion, this is in a small example because I still would give. I'll discuss later. I still give Iron Man 5 out of 5 when we touched base with in the past, and it was really great in a sense. But at the same time, there was something about this film that it was like, okay, we're testing the waters. Let's see if the nerd culture is really going to embrace this. And I do think that we did really reach out. So I'm a little I'm a little torn right now because I will be asking you guys about the popcorn bucket question a little later, and I understand they were all, in similar agreement, so we'll probably get into the discussion furthermore. But I'm digressing. I'm going and rambling. That being said, I want to go into the acting cast. I will go ahead and go to you, Kenji, first, my friend. What do you think about the acting, the casting? Your opinion. Was there anybody that stood out the most? If not, don't worry about it. I mean, honestly, your opinion. Shoot.
Well, obviously, Tom Hiddleston as Loki is stand-up. I mean, the man ended up getting his own spin-off series ultimately because of it, and of course, I don't think I've ever seen him give a bad performance really per se. Of course, Robert Downey Jr. I mean, he's always kills it no matter what, especially with this franchise. And of course, seeing Mark Ruffalo kind of bring in like a new Hulk, which to be perfectly honest, I think he's the best one that we've had so far. I hated Eric Bana's Hulk. I wasn't a big fan of the Edward Norton Hulk, but I was a huge fan of the of Mark, and I think he's fantastic. And honestly, a part of me is like, I kind of want to see more of him being the Hulk. And like, Mark, yeah. So, and but as far as like Thor is concerned, like I felt he's always getting the short end of the stick. I feel like they never really did anything really cool and really meaningful with his character until recently. But with that being said, though, I mean, like I feel like everyone kind of still each character had their own strengths. Every actor brought their own strengths to their roles. Like technically speaking, there is no bad performance in that movie, really.
Heck yeah. Jordyn, what do you think, my friend, for casting?
Well, it's all hot men, all muscle, all of that. I have no problem with it. No, I'm just kidding. So Chris Evans, baby daddy, period. Bottom line, cut and dry. I will say the best performance of Captain America that I've seen is in the Avengers video game, which sucked, but the Avengers video game, that Captain America was the best performance, and that VO was the best, like perfect Steve Rogers to a T, period. But I will say Chris Evans, they did a good pick. I really liked him. Chris Hemsworth, no complaints. And I do feel like you're right. Mark Ruffalo absolutely did the Hulk justice, period. I feel like you're right. While I do like Eric Bana, and while he is a little cute, no. And then Edward Norton, I was like, can't do it, can't support you. But I do feel like, Mark Ruffalo, the way that he took the Hulk, I feel like it was just on a whole nother level. And then he carried it all the way to Endgame. And I feel like it was there. It was that. I do have issues with Scarlett Johansson.
What's wrong with the world's greatest Asian actor?
Not get started on that.
You got so much cackling going for producer Seth right now. That's great.
My thing is this. Every iteration and every actress or character that I've ever thought could play Scarlett or Black Widow, and every video game that I played before all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe came out was Russian, and like Russian accent. Thick, I can do a Russian accent, right? Like I'll play Scarlett. I will play Black Widow. You didn't that's the singular thing that pissed me off when Avengers came out, was like, you don't have a Russian accent. Why are you playing that? And so that's the only issue that I have with her. Other than that, I feel like she did do the character justice without the accent, but there needs to be some authenticity there. And then finally, Robert Downey Jr., he did amazing as Tony Stark. I feel like he embodied the character. He did it, even in the Iron Man, even in everything, but in Avengers, it was him. Like he cared, like, I don't want to say he carried the movie, but he carried the movie, right? Tom Hiddleston,
he started it, yeah.
Yeah, and then Tom Hiddleston, awesome, fine. You can do Loki all day. He'll do Loki all day. He said he'll do it till the end, till he dies. He's great. I feel like it was amazing. Oh, and then Samuel Jackson, Nick Fury, perfect.
He set the tone pretty well. Yeah,
absolutely. So
Heck
I
yeah.
love it.
What about Aunt Robin joining the Avengers for that summer? Kobe Smulders was also great as Maria Hill.
Oh my God. I'm gonna hop into the question or hop in the comment section real quick here because I know I skipped a little bit here. Q said he hopped in a little late, but he's sending her love. So hey, what's up, Q? Coming in here as well. Q says I will rate the movie 5 out of 5. It was so freaking good. The cast was so perfect. Boba Fett said, hey, burn to Scarlet. They agree Scarlet is a frustration. Q was like, the action at the end was the bomb. My favorite part was Hulk whooping Loki's ass. And then he says, puny God.
Puny God.
Producer like, yes. And producers have such a funny scene, puny God. Q goes into, I'm in love with Downey Jr. for being a clean and sober from alcohol for years. But with that being said, he plays a great sober guy playing an alcoholic. Boba Fett says, I'll be right back dinner time, but I miss you guys. But basically a lot of love for a lot of the cast that we've been stating here as well. I mean, guys, you're spot on. I mean, to me, I guess the big thing with me in what put me on a thin line of putting it between a 3 out of 5 and 4 out of 5. And like I said, this is like the whole classic hindsight's 2020, what we're seeing in the nerd culture now. So we're a little spoiled in a sense, you know. So I would say that I might have to be raising up a little bit. But to talk about the cast, you guys are like 100% spot on. So I won't necessarily go into how amazing I thought the actors were. But for example, Robert Downey Jr. coming into Iron Man, the brief moments that he's in it, he still plays that philanthropist, the playboy, the millionaire concept pretty well. And in that short time, he does actually show that, I would say, that little brosive community, relationship he has with the Hulk, Mark Ruffalo. I will say Mark Ruffalo does a fantastic job in explaining the fact that he was suicidal at one time being, and the fact that he is vulnerable and he's tried and he's at his, turning point. So there's a point now in the film that he does really well of like, yeah, I am a badass, but I got like feelings and let's figure this out. I understand that stress and stuff is there. Given that Scarlett Johansson is frustrating in regards to casting, I agree with you. It's difficult. I will say they got away with this one because of the organization she's from. So she's supposed to lose the accent. So she only gets the accent like every once or twice. But honestly, I'm with you. There is some hopes and dreams for some better usage over time with it. Honestly, but you're going to the Ghost of the Shell concept. That's a very frustrating fact. However, I will say that her explaining her relationship with who plays Jeremy Renner, the Hawk, and the fact that you discover from that brief, I think there might be a total of maybe a dialogue of 8 minutes in the whole film, but they do an excellent job of discussing that they have a relationship that is not beyond the creepy one, but in a sense, understanding of, let's say, officer to officer or soldier to soldier, so to speak. So it does set up that tone for the additional films coming in. Going into Tom Hiddleston as Loki, I freaking hated him in this film on a level of resentment because he's so good at being an evil guy. I forgot of how much of an asshole he is in this film. I mean, he kills off like the man, the myth, the legend, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I can't even think of his name. It makes me get teary.
Nick Coulson.
Yes,
Phil. His name is Phil.
Dude, exactly. It's like I'm looking into this because I'm looking at this ridiculously long list of here. I'm just looking into his names. I mean, you have the godfather of all Skarsgårds, Stellan Payne Professor himself. I mean, considering the fact that he has an amazing family that's in the casting itself. So there's so many good people that play so many great roles that you briefly see them for maybe sometimes 5 or 7 minutes, but they do excellent. And I mean, here I am not even mentioning Thor, Chris Hemsworth doing a great job of just being that, hot-headed god duking it out with the Hulk in general. So, I mean, honestly, you guys have hit it spot on. These guys are an amazing cast. And I guess given that, they had, I would say, so little to work with, I guess, in the regards to the history of comics or what we were allowed or what you trademarked or what, what was copyrighted. So what we could put on screen, what the actors did in regards to reflection. So I'm definitely going to be having to hint raising my score up. So on this film myself, but I do believe that was great. But in transitioning to that as well, I want to go ahead into directing. I'm a little in directing wise, I'm going to have to go a little higher in the rating in general too, because I will say directing and the directing, let me backpedal, saved a little bit more for me because I think, in my opinion, that they were in charge of the story pacing, if that makes sense to you guys. I'll start with Kenji. What did you, in your opinion, directing, man, what did you think how that went too as well?
Well, see, that one I have a hard time with. That's a hard one to discuss. That one's a hard one to determine because just as important as the director is as far as the pacing is concerned, it's also the editor that helps set the pacing.
1000%.
So and because of that, like, and of course, and I think Patton Oswalt said, like, if most great blockbuster movies, if it's directed by a man, it's edited by a woman, which means a woman directed it. And basically because of this whole thing. But I think the pacing was fantastic. I think as far as direction wise, like, I don't know about pacing, but as far as what Joss Whedon was able to get out of the actors for this for this role, like, I think he just did a fantastic job. Like, it seemed like he made it a fun set to work on. Yeah. Like, when you see the bloopers, I mean, you see the making of, it's like you don't see really the drama that we end up finding out about Joss later down the road. But as far as like what we see for what was being made for that time, it seems like it was a really fun set to be on. And honestly, like I think that's what's important, is that if you make your set an enjoyable place to work, you'll get the best performance from your people. And I feel like that's what he ended up doing. I feel like the set was a great place, so therefore the performances were great. And honestly, like, I think that's what a director really has to do, is to make sure that everyone's happy. Like, you're getting your performance while making sure that everyone's happy in a weird way.
100%. Like the vibe or energy on set per se, right?
Yeah, because like you set the tone. That you're at the tippy top. You're setting the tone for the entire day. If you show up to set with I've been on sets where like a director shows up and he's in a bad mood, everyone's in a bad mood. So like, I feel like he really helped make it a good place to work for the time.
Right on. Jordyn, you have an opinion on a director, my friend?
Well, yes, but I think overall, I think for me, the way that this film was directed and the way that it was edited, it made sense, right? Like, I think there's some Marvel movies that you can, point out that you're like, I don't know if that flowed correctly, and I don't know if that made sense to people. But I feel like with the Avengers, if you watch it, and if you have it, like I said, if you haven't seen any of the other ones, it would make sense, and it would flow in a way where it was like, I get it. I get it. These people have struggles, these people have problems, but at the same time, they all got to come together and, like, to address like the sort of the contention between all of them, right? Because that's, is addressed, because of what has happened in their past. I feel like it made sense in a way, and I'm gonna put aside, because I'm a huge Firefly fan, or I'm a huge all of that fan, and then I watched The Nevers, and I had really big ethical issues about watching The Nevers on HBO, right? Like, I don't know if you saw, but like, I put out, like, I was like, I don't know if I should watch that. And then it was the fact that, like Kenji said, there's all these other people that work on this like production that like need the credit, that need the watches, that need the views, that I'm like, cool, you know what? I'll watch it and I'll do it. But I feel like with the Avengers, I feel like it made sense. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like the directing was spot on. And Kenji's right. Like, when you watch the bloopers, they all had fun. Like, they all are friends to this day. They all say hi to each other. They all make fun of each other. They all go on shows and they all, like, give each other shit. And I feel like that's cultivated by the person that heads it, the person that is ultimately running the show. And so I feel like it was a successful, directorial movie.
Excellent. And then, and I agree. The fact that you are not necessarily like stepping on eggshells, but the fact that, coming in, we sometimes get stuck between what we believe of what's moral conflict to actually supporting, the rest of people behind it. It's kind of the whole classic, one bad apple ruins a bunch kind of concept. I hate that moral aspect, but sometimes we have to separate ourselves. Because we go into the concepts, we can talk about this in Harry Potter, in that universe, and the contextual rights and so forth as well. It's intense too in that regard too as well. But producer Steph wanted to point in just on your point, Jordyn, making the fact and yours, Kenji, because you guys were talking about the amount of love that was shown on set, and I guess that makes a great, excellent point. The fact that the director might not necessarily always be in charge of that, but just the cast in general, the crew in general, the fact that if the energy of everybody on that set could be that fantastic, maybe one bad person, even if it was the director. I don't know what the story is per se in that specific case, but maybe that continuous energy was the reason for it too as well. Let's see here. Going to the comment section real quick here because I think I missed a couple. Let's see here. I'm sorry, guys. Let's see here. So Q also, because I know I mentioned I missed a comment here, but Q mentioned earlier Ruffalo will be the Bruce/Hulk here. He also mentioned Bale was okay, Norton was meh, but Ruffalo made it better. Let's see here. Q also mentions what got me was Downey wearing a Black Sabbath shirt from the Never Say Die tour.
Yes.
Very cool. Very cool.
That was a nice little touch for sure. Yeah.
I know, right? Also, the scene between Stark and Loki was really tense, and the exchange was fire. Boba says, Boba's back. She says, party, parrot back. And then let's see here. Producer Steph once again mentions that when the cast get matching tattoos, it really means they made wonderful memories. I totally agree in that regard too as well. I mean, honestly, if we're going to talk about like the energy was so positive, I do believe the energy reflects a lot into the acting and the casting. Q mentioned the fact that the scene that's between Stark and Loki itself was like ridiculously intense. Even the goofy scene between Loki and the Hulk, Bruce Banner. Also, like I said, you have a real a moment between coming to Samuel L. Jackson and going into Jeremy Renner, the Hawk as well. There were so many great interactions. But I would have to ask this because I believe this started the gray line between the group and the Avengers. I have to ask you two, and I am going to go ahead and start with you, Jordyn, on this one here. And I'm going to have to ask this from perspective, and I'll chime in after both of you guys here. You see that huge tension between Tony Stark and Steve Rogers, Captain America. So you got Captain America and Iron Man. Right there, in my opinion, that gray line of the two sides of the Avengers was formed. I believe that at that moment, it was discussed. I believe people have their own reasonings what side they have to be on. But I have to ask you guys, if you saw it, and if you could tell by that time being, and you can allow now, let's say, past or previous or future decisions determine what side you're on. I have to ask you guys, Jordyn, with you first, my friend. Were you team Captain America or team Iron Man at that moment? And given that I understand that it's clear lines later in the future, but what side were you on? Who are you feeling most?
So by hotness, team Captain America.
Okay,
period.
Okay, fair enough.
Bottom line, cut and dry. But by morals and ethics, I was Team Cap in Civil War. It's Team Cap. Only because Wanda was also on Team Cap, and Wanda was my favorite. But I was for sure Team Cap because I was not willing to sign that shit. Like if I was an Avengers, if I was doing that, no, yeah. I don't want to sign I don't want you telling me what I need to do or when I need it. Because what if there's a threat that the government deems is not a threat, and I'm like, oh no, you're gonna fuck yourself over, and then I'm like, I can't do anything about it because I could potentially get killed by another Avenger, right? Who's more powerful, right? So I was 100% Team Cap.
All right, right on. Okay. Kenji, how about yourself? Oh, a Team Iron Man or Team Captain America? And go and reasonings go right ahead, my friend.
Here's the thing. I end up being Team Thor and Hulk, where I'm like not there, and I'm just I'm off planet. Because as far as I'm concerned, this is an extremely, like, first of all, the scene between when I first saw the Avengers movie and I saw that interaction happening between Captain America and Tony, I was like, oh my. I was already in my seat going, oh, Civil War. But of course, in the back of my head was going, where are the X-Men? They're probably not going to have them, but oh my God. But like it's really weird because it is such a weird moral ambiguity. Like there's such a gray area that's going about it because it's like, yes, I am all about, like, I understand Captain America's thing about, yes, but you, like when he talks about like, yes, Tony, but you chose to do that. If we sign this piece of paper, we give up our right to choose. But I also understand accountability. Like that's a huge thing because like there are multiple, like freaking Superman's a great example. Like he literally broke Kansas, like, and then and when you think about stuff like that, it's like, and even with The Incredibles, the movie The Incredibles brings it up too. The accountability of the actions of superheroes. And I kind of get that, because as much as we like to be like, oh wow, they're saving the world,
great responsibility.
Exactly. So because of that, like I'm like in such a weird moral gray area where I just want to be like, I'm an alien. I don't this doesn't apply to me. So like that's how I feel about it. Because like honestly, I feel like both sides bring valid points, and I'm also what's known. I'm a Libra. Okay, I see both sides. I'm not gonna pick a side.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Here's what's funny. I'm an Aquarian sun sign, but both my moon and my rising are in Libra. So I'm also that way too. But my thing is it's like, oh my God, we're getting into like ethics, and I love this shit. Humans, us, right? Like non-metaphysical humans, we do have ways to hold people accountable, but that system is corrupt. So then who's to say that the systems that we put in place for these people is going to be equal or equitable to holding these people that are metahumans, right? That have these superpowers that could kill us in any minute, would hold themselves in place, right? Like if our systems are corrupt.
We need both of you guys here for the future conversation we're going to be having about Watchmen. So just go ahead and so both of you guys are already tucked in there.
I love Watchmen.
She's in a chicken. Hopefully it comes up, and hopefully
it's because that was my thing, and it was, and I know it's like such a huge thing to take away from like Civil War and like the Avengers, but I'm like, you can't sign on to something that's already corrupt. Like you cannot sign your name to a system that is going to hold you accountable, but then accountability is corrupt, right? Like especially within humans and the way that we like live in the system. So that's why I was like, oh nah, bro. Like
that,
these,
yeah.
You
see,
know,
that makes
like,
sense. That drives me nuts a little bit, because I have to backpedal slightly, because I said that technically Avengers was the first thing I saw on screen, and it technically was. But my actual, I would say, foundation was X-Men and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And now I think about it, I know both you are very familiar with X-Men because the references you have made to this, and in my eyes, X-Men did an excellent job of showing the fact that even if you had differences, it wasn't right to kind of keep track of people with these differences. And you should have, it's one of those things where just because a new form of development made its way naturally into society, we shouldn't like be afraid of it, embrace it, figure out how to go in life in it. So on that note that I had when I saw Captain America and Iron Man, at that, and it's crazy because it's one of those things where we say that's a morally gray line, but in my opinion, it's something that's so damn blurry, it's clear. Like it's one of those things where it is so unclear that it's obviously a problem, but it's not the fact that we can't see what's going on. It's the fact that we're trying to go ahead and make sure that I guess the whole living by a whole concept of like, as long as you don't kill anybody, as long as you don't interfere with what their expression is, I'm happy in a sense. And I hate saying it like that because that almost, once again, gets it clear and concise. But I guess ultimately what I meant to say is the fact that I was very, very, very confused because when this movie came out initially in 2012, I was actually very pro Iron Man and what was going on at the time being, because I believed that he was trying to make sacrifices to help the better good. But at that time, my mind was set into my own personal bubble, my own personal life. So I believe what was going around at me at the time being was happening everywhere in life. So later on, now that I think about like, recent events, especially in the past 5 years, especially in the past 5 years, I switched over to Team Captain America. And the funny thing is that I think a lot of people don't realize the irony of people that support Captain America nowadays, because of the fact they're like, he's Captain America, he fights for America. And I'm like, I'm like, you guys need to actually watch the Avengers and what he did. And you're taking these quotes that he does, and out there, like there's a famous quote that I love to use quite often, and I have to get more the find of the he's talking about standing by the river of truth and saying the fact that even if what you are saying is not accepted by the majority, still staying strong. And people try to use this dang thing in regards to being, oh, be woke and culture and reality. I'm like, nah, it's just telling you to be a freaking human being, dumbass. It's like, if something in society looks like it's shunning an individual and they're being hurt, help them out. That's what it is, you know. So it's you know, in a sense, it's crazy because don't get me wrong, I don't once again, I do not want to go side off with this, but too much off of this. But yeah, like I said, I changed my, in a sense, like, don't get me wrong. I just kind of, as I developed over the years, I thought it would be, you know, because Captain America is one of my favorites. Transitioned over to really embracing the Winter Soldier as a character. Of course, he makes an appearance later. So, you know, all these things that, you know, I was surprised of who I related with at the time being, you know, Tony Stark and, you know, Iron Man, and just, you know, okay, cool. He's making the bigger sacrifices and he has all this money trying to help people out. You know, this is what's going on. Please just, if he thinks it's good, everybody, you know, and the fact that it's just one of those things. But I definitely have to say I was a team. Now I say team Captain America. But on that note here, I want to check out something, see if I missed something here. Now, in regards to popcorn buckets and what we discussed so far, Kenji, would you still hold this film, in your opinion, 3 out of 5? And would you raise it or lower it? And if so, what is your reasoning?
I'm going to keep it at a 3 out of 5 popcorn buckets. And that's for my current mindset looking at it. And that's because I feel like at the time when we saw it, we thought this was like, I mean, besides Dark Knight and Batman Begins, other than the Nolan movies, we really didn't have like really good superhero movies. I mean, we had, up until that point, we've had all the A-list characters were given off to other studios. So essentially we had a movie full of, technically speaking, B-list characters. And we did a fantastic job with presenting this amazing storyline. But with that said, though, we also now, and today, now we see the amazing writing that is capable, that the studios are capable of now. Like, I mean, like the Loki series had an amazing insight on self-love and also, you know, what is it, narcissism. And it's like, which is amazing. I did not expect that to be a deep dive into narcissism, which is fantastic. You got Moon Knight, which talks about dissociative and multiple personality disorders, which is phenomenal. Like, you've got so many like just amazingly meaningful stories being written now, and it's where you don't just have something on the screen just for the sake of wham bam boom flash big explosions. You've actually got something really deep and meaningful now. So that's the only, because like, here's the thing, I'm not going to discredit it for what it's brought. But with that being said, I see that it's not the best thing that I thought it was at the time. So I'm bringing it down to 3 and a 5.
Copy. Gotcha. No, gotcha. Copy. All right, Jordyn, yourself. I know you're also a fellow 3 out of 5 because we across the board we're all in similar mindset. Would you go ahead and rate it above or lower than your score that you said earlier? And if so, why?
So I would keep it at a 3. I wanted to originally give it a 2 because I was like, I don't know if it's like the greatest movie I've seen, but also, you know, it's got some work to do. But I think, you know, giving it a 3 justifies my sort of love for these movies and the reason why, like, during quarantine, I was like, let me just binge the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? And like, I did it, and because we had fucking time, and I did it. And watching the Avengers, I think, started my love for all of these movies, and especially for these cast members, right? Because you fall in love with them, you get invested in it, and then you like watch something like Endgame, right? And you're like, no, it can't be the end. And then you're like, oh, Marvel's got like more, and you're like, okay, cool, like great, we get to see more of that. We get to see all of that later on, and so I would still keep it at a 3. It's not the greatest movie, like I would have maybe said, but it's also not the worst movie I've ever seen. And I feel like because, you know, while the X-Men weren't originally like in any of the, you know, the Infinity Stone like Chronicles and like all that stuff, which originally it was in, I feel like the Avengers leading up to all of that, this movie specifically set the tone for me to enjoy the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So
Very cool. Right on. Very well said. Well said. I will have to be a slightly a little different. I will say that the acting saved it for me a little bit. In regards to moving the rating, my previous rating a 3 out of 5 popcorn bullets to a 4 out of 5 popcorn bullets. Honestly, because there's points that you guys have made repeatedly that actually help benefit my decision to go up, and mainly because of what didn't exist. All we knew at the time being was Blade set the tone. And the fact that Blade, when it came out, people are like, oh my God, this is actually a Marvel movie. And in fact, if we're going to go technically historical, it actually made enough money to get Marvel out of debt and put them where it needed to be. So at that time, with lack of history, I will say I'll put it back to 4 to 5. Not only that, we're looking at the relationship between characters going back and forth, the storyline developing. And honestly, and once again, I have to blame you on this one, Kenji, because mentioning the fact that there's also editing involved and looking up, going into the concepts of it. And there's a whole, cast beyond that, and it goes into it. So I would say that even though, because I almost had a slight brain fart, I totally forgot Whedon was the one here, given the fact that we were talking about Firefly and, previous and earlier, and what was going on and previous, what's connection with him. But once again, I'm going to blame you, Jordyn, on this one, just for the love people show on set, the pictures they take, the things, what they do, that has a big effect on the set. And even if there's one, like I said, I mentioned this before, even if there's one bad apple that can pass, basically have the opportunity to ruin the bunch, as long as you kind of, take that thing to the side there and kind of keep away from the majority and keep things, positive flowing, and you can get a good result. And it seems like we got a good positive result in that regard. But we are getting close to the end of the show, so I want to go ahead and reach out to a couple things here for you guys. So just before we go out into the lovely outro, Jordyn, where could we reach you on the socials, my friend? Where can we find folks here on our show, find you when you're not here?
I've done a bunch of these Nom Watch reviews. You can see me on here, Nom Talk Network. I love it. I support it. I'm all over it. On Instagram, I'm City of Stars 13, because I live in Los Angeles and it's City of Stars. And now that I'm...
You just got that. I like that.
I know, right? That's why I did
it.
People are like, oh, it's because you live here. And I'm like, no, it's because I live in Los Angeles. That's why I do it. Now that I just got done with my, soon to be done with my master's on Monday, I will be doing some awesome and amazing nerd stuff. I want to do a podcast. I want to start some wonderful stuff and help stuff on this wonderful channel. So you'll probably see more of me in the nerd area of life. So that's where.
Nice.
Spoiling us with Jordyn. I'm down with that, sir. Down with that. Kenji, you are also another person we love having on the show, my friend. Where can we actually find you on the socials?
Before I get to mine, let me just say, Jordyn, congratulations on finishing up your master's. Like, that is not an easy thing to do.
Yes.
Yeah. So congratulations
1,000%.
on like.
Did I just like go over that like, oh, I'm
master's.
So sorry.
Like congratulations on your master's.
Fantastic.
So now back to me. Camera back to me. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Instagram at Kenjinator, which is like the Terminator, but Kenjinator. You can find me on Twitch at the Kenjinator. And on Sundays, I do a D&D podcast with my father where we do a campaign together. He's the DM. And I basically play The Witcher. And you can find us on KD in LA. So yeah, that's every Sunday at 3 p.m. And you're wondering how am I playing a Witcher, Jordyn? I'm playing an Eldritch Knight, which is essentially a Witcher. He's basically a warlock.
How did I not know this? Geralt of Rivia is like my husband, period, bottom line. How did I not know this? Okay, sorry.
No, you're good. No, it's all good. We're discovering fun things.
Like, subscribe, comment, period.
Excellent.
Great.
Well, guys, you can find me at IAMCOWIE. I am Cowie on Instagram, or Facebook, that would be an acting account where I post shenanigan daily videos. You name it. Hey, Hollywood, cast me. Shameless plug. Anyway, that being
Cast
said,
all of us.
cast everybody. Yes, exactly. I had a little selfish moment there. So producer Steph says, her too, please, her too. So along with that here, let's go into, please do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, as well here on Twitch. All our platforms are going to be at Nom Talk Network. Thank you again, producer Steph. You are amazing. You're fantastic. You are the woman, the myth, the legend. You know it. We love you. Along with that, please tune into our next show, which is going to be Tuesday, the 10th, where we're going to have the host Jordyn here and also Kenji, along with Jefferson, talk about a lovely, lovely thing here that we like to call the Doctor Strange in the Doctor Strange universe. So we'll go ahead and get to that. That's super, super exciting. Once again, guys, thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate you always sending us love. Remember, have a fantastic night. Love, peace, chicken grease. Never grow up, never surrender.